Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Dr. Lake Show. This is Dr. Paula Lake. Another day here to do a podcast. Looking forward to this. Today especially, and I mean this is a great opportunity today to talk about adversity. I think we've been doing a lot of shows on adversity and how to deal with it. In this particular case, we're talking about dealing with adversity of mental health issues and how to rise above some of the issues that we end up facing and dealing with. Someone that I have actually a lot of respect for. Her name is a guest here, which I'm excited to have this conversation with, Clisver Alvarez. She is a mindset expert. She's a freelance writer. She's founded the Blue Greis Lifestyle. She also was noted as a mental health champion in the Authority magazine, featured in Good Housekeeping article, wrote a great article called I Am Not My Mental Illness. We're in contact to Jackson, Tennessee from Nanaimo, BC. Amazing. Nice to have you here, Clisver.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor.
Well, I feel equally excited about you being here. Just for one of my focuses and interest has always been on dealing with adversity, and sometimes when you feel you have the cards against you, how do you turn that around? I think that's been really a big, an essence of what you've been dealing with, Clisver. For you to come from where you came from, one of the stories that has been in the articles and publicized about you is your struggle with mental illness and being diagnosed with bipolar, and how you came from where you were in that struggle to where you are today. And I think that that's a great story to tell. And with my working with people who struggle with mental illness, it's an inspirational story to tell. I'm wondering if you could just talk about a little bit about how you started off on this journey that got you to this place of being someone who wants to help others. Where was your starting point with this, Clisver?
I think that for me, the starting point was facing stigma, and being head on with it, because I felt like I didn't want anyone else to be treated that way.
Right.
I didn't want anyone else to feel what I had felt. And, being called these names and being called certain things because I had an illness that wasn't in my control was very rough for me, especially at such a young age.
How old? I
was diagnosed at the age of 16.
Okay.
But I was put on medication at the age of 16, and the medication, I think, caused a lot of side effects that caused a lot of bullying, weight gain. It caused me a lot of drowsiness where I was falling asleep during class, and it caused a lot of situations where I was pulled out of class or called out in certain aspects of, you're lazy or you don't want to be here or these certain things. But it was actually that I was actually under very heavy medications, and they didn't see that other side of it.
So, you had experienced some bullying as well in that time period, because I imagine that would be hard. Yes. Those are such fragile years. We don't have our identity formed yet, and we're still trying to establish who are we amidst people. How did that affect you in such a vulnerable time? It's a vulnerable age group then for that to happen.
I mean, I think I shut down a lot. Like, I just stopped going to school. At some point, I started skipping classes. I started doing a lot of things that were very destructive to me. In general. I think that, detrimental to me, to my health, to my future in general, because I messed up in school. I actually went, and thankfully I didn't turn to any other other medications like drugs or alcohol or anything like that. but I was very close to those things.
Mm.
I did, however, experiment with one side that I feel like was not at that age was very, which is, I know this is something a lot of people don't want to talk about, but it's one of the side effects of bipolar disorder, and it's the hypersexuality of it.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I kind of was very self-destructive in.
Hmm. And that might have been an outlet or a coping for you as well.
It could have been,
Yeah.
I think that I used it as a coping mechanism to kind of, besides I started, I did a lot of the whole cutting and things like that at that age. And it was a tough period for me.
Did you have a support system for you in that time period? And as you were trying to navigate?
I did.
Okay.
I did, but it was a support system where they actually got me help, but they didn't know they didn't understand me. You know, it was something that they didn't know what was going on emotionally, because they were there for me, but they didn't know how to help me.
So you did not,
like, they could have.
Yeah.
So I didn't know how to actually tell them what was going on. I didn't know how to open up to them, because I felt like they don't know what's going on with me, because they don't have the same thing that's going on. Okay. So I didn't have anything in common with them.
Yeah.
So,
and so
out of that,
you must have felt so lonely. I'm trying to imagine when you're going through something and you're wanting to reach out and get that support, and not really even, did you find that experience even with the mental health professionals? I imagine you were faced with having to tell your story to different professionals. Did you?
At that age, I think it was hard for me, because a lot of the times, being a minor, my parents had to be there.
Okay.
And going through that, it was tough, because I didn't want to open up in front of my mom or my dad.
Right.
So that was very tough in itself. Once I got older, I was able to kind of find someone that understood me a little bit better, and that I conformed a little bit better to.
Okay.
Because that's something I always say to a lot of people. If you're not comfortable with your therapist or your counselor, I think that it's something that you have to be comfortable with them in order to be able to let everything out. And at first, I wasn't really comfortable with the person, and until I found someone that I was able to actually release all the energy and release everything that was going on with me. And I think that once I was able to do that, I was actually able to find the help that I needed.
That point is really important, because I do think, and I don't know what your thoughts are about this, we just end up picking a therapist. You go to the therapist, you're hoping that that's going to be the person that you connect with, and you're in a vulnerable position already. So it's hard to be recognizing it's actually the therapy connection that's not working, versus saying it's me that's not able to make it work, right? So that was really great that you were able to tap in and keep looking until you found someone that was a good fit for you.
Yes. And so, as I got older, I think that I had another turning point as well with the medication too, because I got to the point where I would stop taking the medication because of the side effects.
Right.
So until one point, I actually got pregnant, and I had to be off the medication during the pregnancy.
Right.
So I ended up getting sick, and the whole pregnancy was fine. But then with the hormones and everything going on, and the stress level that I was in, it triggered an episode at the after post birth. So eventually, I actually had a choice to make, and it was actually either being there for my son and taking this medication and being a parent to my child, or actually breastfeeding him and not taking the medication,
right,
but risking being a parent. being actually mentally stable to actually be a parent for him. And for me, I think it was a no-brainer because I'm told myself, I'm like, okay, if I don't take this medication, I won't be able to actually be there for him physically,
Right.
emotionally,
Major decision.
Yeah. And even though like there's this whole another kind of stigma out there that a lot of mothers face, it's, if you don't breastfeed your child, you're not a mom. I was facing that other stigma, and it was something very tough for me because I kind of faced that postpartum depression after that too, because I didn't feel like I was a good enough mom because I didn't breastfeed. So I battled that, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to tough it out, and I'm going to choose to be a parent to my child because now it's not just me anymore.
Wow. And
I took the medication, and I decided to be responsible in that aspect because I'm like, I have to be responsible for not just myself anymore. I have to take care of something else, not just me.
Right. That was you think that was a pivotal
turning point?
Yeah, a turning point for you. So that
definitely
having a child really inspired you to want to do something and not to do it for the well-being of another human being, right? Someone that is your child, of course. And yes. So do you recognize that as having been a significant contributor for yourself in making those changes?
I do. I honestly do, because I think without that, I don't know. I mean, if something else would have changed me, or I don't know. I am very thankful for that happening.
Yeah.
Because I was really going down a dark path.
Right.
And I think that really changed my perspective on life, and it gave me kind of a purpose in a way.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So it really did.
And so when that change happened, how did you embark on a different path from the one you'd been before? What were some of the steps you took that allowed you to, pull yourself out of that? Because I'm sure there was a cyclical pattern to bipolar, right?
Well, I remember one thing that my mom told me in the hospital, and I think that this was something that resonated a lot with me, was you have to take care of yourself. If you want to be able to take care of this child, you have to take care of yourself. And then everything else, kind of goes after that.
Right.
It's like, and I always use this quote. It's something that I really like, because it really kind of says it all. It's the airplane quote. Put on your mask before you put on everybody else's mask, because you'll run out of air if you don't, and then you won't be able to help anybody else.
Well, that's very wise advice from your mother. So that was she really supported you and encouraged you to do that self-care for yourself,
yes.
So that, and were there specific things that you did in that time that meant taking care of yourself beyond taking medication that you thought was going to be important for you to not slip down that hole?
I think the main thing besides the medication was actually going to those counselors and taking those things seriously, and actually taking the steps to actually focus on myself, because a lot of the times it was me going out with friends and me going and focusing on other people rather than actually me taking the time out and say, you know what, I need this time for me.
Okay. And
taking out that time.
Were there some things, I think one thing, I always think of people that are struggling and with mental health issues, and dealing with a mindset. You became a mindset expert, which I find really interesting. And I'm assuming that maybe that also, you're delving into what is a mindset? What does that mean? And what role did the mindset aspect of it play in your own recovery? Or I'm sure this is still part of the journey, but what did that play for you, and how did you get involved with the whole idea of mindset? What happened to get you there?
Well, this happened a little bit after, and what mindset actually is an established set of attitude held by someone or a person. And basically in that moment, I changed my attitude towards the medication. How I was reacting towards the medication, how I was, my attitude towards it, at that time. Now, the mindset expert came a little bit after. Once I met my husband, I was actually living, and financially I was a little bit, not very, very good. We were actually living in my mom's house. And this actually, we were struggling financially. We were not in a really good place. This was causing a lot of friction in between us because, we didn't really want to live there for the rest of our lives, being recently married. And my dad had just passed, and I was kind of in a dark place again. Mm. And I felt like I didn't want to be this person for the rest of my life. I had just lost my job because I had gotten sick again.
Wow.
And due to the fact that I wasn't taking care of myself because I was taking care of everybody else, mm-hmm. and my dad had just passed, and I kind of decided I was I stopped taking care of myself. So I ended up saying to myself, I'm like, okay, I don't want to live this life for the rest of my life, but I don't know how to get out of this situation.
Right.
I felt like everything was blocking me. I felt like I didn't have enough money to move out of my mom's house with my husband and my son. I didn't have a lot of, everything I felt like was blocking me at that time. But then my husband had mentioned, he was like, we should move to Tennessee. We were living in New Jersey at the time.
Okay.
And he said, we should move to Tennessee. And I'm like, okay, but how are we going to do that? We don't have money. And everything was just like, but what if? And out of nowhere, we were like, okay, our taxes are coming in. And then all these questions, I'm like, yeah, we're going to use the only money we have. We're going to use and, risk it all. Mm-hmm. And it was just all these unknowns, because I'm like, I've never been there. I have, what if it doesn't work out? And basically, I spoke to one of my, I was going to a court-mandated group, mm-hmm. that I actually, because I had been in the hospital too many times previously. So they actually ordered a court-mandated group. And a person there, one of the counselors there, she mentioned to me, I still remember this. She told me, she was like, because I was asking her, I'm like, should I go? Should I not go? I was kind of in between. And she told me, she's like, whatever decision you make in life, whether it's good or bad, the important part is you're going to learn from this. And I think that was one of the things that I needed to hear, to the push that I needed. So we ended up deciding to actually move to Tennessee, and it was a good decision. It ended up to be a good decision. But I know another quote that I always hear is, the hardest decision is the one that's going to make you grow in life. And I think that that decision that I made there, it was to actually change my attitude.
Yeah.
To change my attitude towards how I viewed everything, because I unblocked my way of thought of what if this happens, what if that happens. I chose to believe in faith, and basically in what in just myself, and I chose to go for it. And everything just worked out eventually. Wow. But I retrained my brain a little bit, of removed all those blocks that I had, and I went for it. So that's kind of like the mindset thing, you kind of have to, because a lot of people, I think, we're stuck on that, but I can't do this, I'm too older, or I'm too, I don't have a degree, or what is that, there's always, I can't do this, I can't do that. And we're always stuck on something that we want to do, and we don't do it because there's always a what if,
Yeah.
or I can't.
Yeah. 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 So you it sounds like you really dealt with you faced this experience where you were running into all these walls and not knowing how to move beyond those walls until you decided to go for it. Really, you
Mhm.
got out of your own way and you made this huge change in your life.
Mhm.
I think one of the things I always find interesting is the challenge if you've had a way of thinking and how you actually can change that way of thinking. And I don't think that's as easy as maybe people think it might be, because
Mhm.
we are patterned and we have, so you had all these sort of periods where you felt like you slipped behind, and then you managed to, one of the things I read in your articles and some of the things you talked about around mindset was the role that thinking positively played for you, or changing the way that you viewed experiences.
Mhm.
How hard was making that shift for you? Changing it in a way that was enduring, that stuck. What did you find it challenging? Was it a process? Did
It
you?
was.
Okay.
It was. But I think that one thing I always like to say is I had to retrain my brain in order to transform and adapt to everything. I had to retrain the way I thought. And I always say that in order for me to think positive, in order for me to think in a positive light, I always have to say to myself, no matter what happens, there's a bigger purpose out there.
Mm.
There's always something. There's. I'm going to look back to this moment and say, you know what, this had to happen in order for the bigger the bigger picture to occur.
And so this was something you conversed with yourself on a regular basis. So you did you do any particular exercises or things that helped you in particular start to change that mindset from a day-to-day basis?
I think I keep a gratitude journal. I
Okay.
think that because for example, when you're grateful for the things that you already have,
Hmm.
you tend to need and want less.
Yeah.
And you tend to see the things that are already in your life, and you tend to see the positives.
And you directed your thought
So,
towards that place of gratitude to recognize that. And I think that's helpful for
mhm,
people to know. And one thing that when I do sometimes deal with people that are struggling with mental health issues is they can try those kinds of things out, and they sometimes they'll say, well, it doesn't feel real to me, or they'll try it for a week. But I think maybe it means doing more than something brief. You're actually doing this on a regular basis. How long would you say that work and changing your mindset kind of took for you, and to feel some substantive changes where it started to become a new way for you to think?
well, honestly, I think that
Okay.
consistency is key, and I think that it has to be a way of life. I can't really say,
Right.
uh,
Is there
and
any
I
time frame?
think until it depends on what it is that you want to accomplish. I can't
Right.
really say what it is that um, I'm actually a very determined person. I'm a person that when I want something, until I see it through, I don't think I stop.
Amazing. That's amazing.
So, so I think that it's just called. I think it's perseverance. I think
Absolutely.
that until you obtain what it is that you want to obtain, I think that it's not about a time limit or a time period. I think that it's perseverance.
And the stigma is one of your missions in making these changes. You ended up moving and became a mindset expert. You're also doing coaching right now, and
Hmm.
I imagine that stigma has played into some of the issues you struggled with. What are you noticing about stigma in our culture and how it impacts mental health issues?
Well, I think that a lot of the taboo of it all has subsided. I think it's coming to the light a little bit more. People are talking about it more. It's not as different or weird or uh, in the dark anymore,
Mm-hmm.
which it's good because that's what we need. We need to shine a light on it.
Yes.
Um, but I think even though it's coming out a little bit more into the light, I think there's still those gray areas. Like, for example, I think I spoke to someone about this the other day, and I think that we should treat it as a physical illness. I think that, for example, like how they teach physical education in schools, I think that we should also teach mental health illness
Mm-hmm.
or how to mental health education
Yeah.
in school,
Yeah.
because I think that would play a lot of good roles in, for example, helping someone when it comes to de-escalation or certain things like that.
I think that's
In
brilliant because I absolutely agree. The more familiar we are with something, and mental health issues, they cut across a large portion of the population. Not sure what
mm-hmm.
statistics you've run into with how often we run into mental health issues. So the fact that we're not really talking about it in high school for me is a major limitation. I hope we're starting to implement a little bit, even in coping tools such as I know they've started with meditation in schools for some
Yes.
students. I think there's still more to do in that arena. I don't know if you've made
Mm-hmm.
any observations of what they might be implementing, especially there in the States. I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, I think that implementing it more and talking about it more, and I think that even because I remember when I was in school, we had like guidance counselors.
Mm-hmm.
But that was we had like the guidance counselors where we could go also talk to them about if there was something going on, or it wasn't just for like our grades.
And
And I think
it
that
still
they
kind
have.
of singles you out because you're the one going to this private counselor. I think when they're providing that education for the whole school, it's much more
Mm-hmm.
inclusive. That's what is going to contribute to the social destigmatization, rather
Yes.
than just going alone and moving it out of sort of the closet environment into a more open conversation environment, would be very, very helpful. And
Exactly.
and so what kinds of things has this been a mission for you to try to work on the destigmatizing of mental health issues, of mental health problems?
Well, I have like a project that I'm really passionate about, and I think that not just for that, with the stigma and wanting to incorporate it in different areas of life, but I also want to actually help other people. I actually have a goal. I created a campaign. I think it's up right now, but I haven't worked out all the details. But because it's actually a project that I'm creating right now,
Wow.
but I actually want to help other people, and this was started as a blog. Like it started as just a blog where I kind of wanted to help people where they had a space where they can kind of vent.
Nice.
And now it's kind of because I think that I've had moments where I've had situations where I've needed help.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people don't. And now in today's society, I think that it's easier to just pull out your phone and record, or and just turn your back on someone. And I think that for me, I've seen I've been in situations where I've been manic, and I've been let's just say I've been like I remember situations where I've been like, let's say, wandering in the streets or something. I remember one time I was actually in the streets of New York, and I was actually going to meet my husband in New York, and I was actually in a manic phase.
Mm.
And I left my phone in my house, so I didn't have a phone to reach him. And I was trying to buy a phone to contact him, but I didn't have my ID with me to buy it with a credit card.
Wow.
So I ended up trying to ask someone for a phone call so that I can contact my husband to pick me up, because I was just lost in New York, basically.
Wow.
And I mean, I got chills just thinking about it. I was lost in the streets of New York, manic, having a manic episode, and I was basically giving out money to everyone that I saw, trying to get a phone call, because I felt like I was lost. I felt like I was just, in space. I was basically just lost.
My gosh, yeah.
And I ended up actually seeing a police officer, and the police officer did not help me.
Oh.
And magically I found my husband, and I ended up getting home.
Wow.
But I was crossing the street. I was crossing the street, like, and you know how New York City is. Like, there's cars everywhere. I mean, it could have gotten to the point where it was bad. And I mean, thankfully nothing happened, but it's just to the point where no one helped me.
Yeah.
And I've always been the type of person that I'm just like, if I can help someone, I'm always, whether, I just take, like they say, the back off the shirt off my back, because I've been in situations where I haven't gotten the help. So I think that this foundation, or this organization that I kind of want to create, is a foundation for people who have ever needed help or have been in situations of struggle. And that's kind of the idea behind it.
And so part of the desire are you reaching out to people who have struggled similarly to what you have witnessed, and what would that, or no?
For me, I think it would even be like, if you need an outfit for a interview, or if you need, I think that, like, that's the thing. I haven't worked out the quirks and of all of it, but I just think that the main purpose of it all is to lend a helping hand.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can lend a helping hand to someone by just basically saying thank you, or whatever, just saying, because, and the way you can, for example, like I say, you can lend a helping hand to someone by saying thank you, is because you can brighten their day.
Yeah.
When you say thank you to someone at the end of their, like, if you are shopping and you say thank you, you don't know what day they're having. So that can easily brighten their day.
I actually remember hearing a story, and it was of a man who was driving in a truck with his partner, and he was waving at everybody on the street. And his partner turned to him and said, "What are you doing? Why are you waving at everybody and saying hello?" And he said, because he heard that sometimes just saying hello to somebody can make the difference between them living and dying. And so it
really can.
Yeah. And those small gestures of kindness, the magnitude of impact that they can make on somebody's life, we underestimate that from a day-to-day basis. And it sounds like you're echoing that experience for you, as those acts of kindness, and can make an immense difference for people who are struggling. And so it sounds like you're trying to create an avenue to empower, or to give that voice to people who might need that assistance.
Yes. I mean, there was actually another, and I don't know if we have time, but there was another, because I always tend to do this when I'm manic, but there was one where I actually was in McDonald's, and I noticed there was a homeless guy there. And this person, I was actually very, very irritable. And this person actually, I was a little bit kind of just, I was kind of hungry and they were taking long to get the food or whatever. And I was kind of irritable and I had to use the bathroom, and being that I was kind of, I don't know, like I had my children with me. Mm-hmm. So he ended up, and I know this is not right, but he ended up watching my children while I went to the bathroom.
Right.
So I ended up, he was homeless. I remember he was homeless, and I ended up buying him some stuff, some like toilet paper and some food and some stuff. And I gave him a ride to the bus stop. And it was just that like a little act of kindness.
Mm-hmm. Huge act of kindness. Yeah.
A gesture of kindness.
Absolutely.
And I remember my husband, like when I got home, my husband was like, no, but he was homeless and you didn't know him and all this stuff. But there was just something, like I'm a very intuitive person.
Right.
And I knew that this person wasn't going to hurt me. And,
right.
and I don't go off doing this to everybody. And I,
yeah. So there was a judgment call there.
Yeah, there was a huge judgment call there.
Yeah.
But this person, and I think that I knew this person was in need. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This person was in need of, and he didn't ask me for money. He didn't ask me for anything. And it was just, I felt like it was something out of the kindness of my heart.
That must have felt good inside for when you experience, yourself helping somebody. I know one of the Buddhist philosophies is if we're working our way through depression, we reach out and we help people around us. And sometimes that can be sufficient to, really expand our let's say our viewpoint, not just on us, but on the difference we can make in people's lives. And it sounds like you really connected to that as someone who struggled yourself, right? So I would imagine that helped you experience just greater compassion. And, when we have struggled and found ourselves in that place of being alone, it's easier to have that open-heartedness when we see others struggle, and because we know what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
it's very true.
Yeah. Are you at this point, if you were to describe, where you're at today, and, it sounds like you're doing remarkably well. I'm assuming that you're still navigating some issues around bipolar, but maybe have found some tools. Mm-hmm. Where are you at today in terms of dealing with setbacks, or if setbacks happen, or how you're managing with that? What's different today than what might have existed, let's say, in the past for you?
I think what's different today is that I am more self-aware. I think that, like, for example, the last episode I felt it coming on. Right. I felt myself and I caught it. I kind of, I sat my husband down and I told him, I'm like, okay, I think I need to go to the hospital because I'm not feeling well. I can feel some stress coming on, and I decided to go on my own before they would actually call and take me there.
Right.
And so I made and I think that decision to actually want to get the help yourself rather than having, because it's something that it's like surrendering the control, it's hard. Mm-hmm. And I think that, even when I got there, everyone already kind of knew me because I had been there before, and they told me, Clisver, this is the first time we see you that you are lucid, that you are actually, you recognize us, or we see you that you're,
Wow.
And I went, and I was there one day, And they told me, do you want to go home? Are you fine? And I'm like, no, I think I need this time for myself. I think I need to take at least one day here. They didn't change the medication or anything, but I think I needed that day to actually just decompress.
Okay. So
because sometimes it's just that. Sometimes it's just life, you know?
And being in tune with what your needs are. And it sounds like right now you have a greater awareness. You know the cues, you pay attention to the cues, and you use those and respond to them, where historically you might have just let that, worsen and let time pass. Right now you're on top of recognizing it. How important is support? Do you have a large support network? Are you... I always think, mental health isn't like something we go out and buy. It's not really unlike even fitness. We don't do it in one day and then we're fit for the rest of our lives. So in terms of your, sustaining this process for yourself and making that commitment, what is it you're committing to on a daily basis in something that, if you could give advice to somebody who's struggling and perhaps has been stuck in that place where they're not knowing how to step out of, what would be a suggestion you would give for people that maybe are wanting to sort of get to a more optimistic, positive place as to where you're at right now?
Well, I think that for example, support, it can be, if you don't have the support, I think that because support can be a family member, it can be a friend, it could be a pet, it can be that radio talk show that you listen to every day. That can be your support. It doesn't necessarily have to be a group of people that you have by your side all the time. Right. It can be, books or things that you enjoy doing. So I think that could be your support system. And advice that I can give someone that has been going through this, that is currently going through this, and I think that wants to get out of this situation, I think that the blocks that you have or that you want to get rid of, I think that only you have the answer to get rid of them. I think that, sometimes we try to find the solution in other people, or try to ask questions to other people and things like that. But I think that those blocks and roadblocks that we have, I think that the solution is always within us. We just have to search and ask ourselves, what is it that we really want?
Right.
What is it that we actually really want to do with ourselves? And we have to ask ourselves, what is it that we really want? And really be clear with that. But besides that, I think that if we're stuck on what is it that we really want, we have to ask ourselves, what are we doing right now that is not currently working? What is it? Are we, because life is like it's sometimes we're going in circles, Sometimes we're going in circles and doing the same thing over and over. So is there something that you have to change? Is there something that you have to change?
Yeah. And to really do a little bit of,
then, sometimes we just have to do some digging. And another thing that I would like to say is, go for it. If something that you have to change one thing or whatever, don't think that you are too young, too old, too not good enough. I mean, there's so many people out there that just think that they're not smart enough, they're not good enough, they're not this, whatever. It's just go for it. Whoever says that or whoever, don't listen to them. You are perfect. You are perfect. And I think that whoever you're trying to be like or whatever, don't compare yourself to them, because they all started somewhere.
That's a really lovely message, I think, and it's important. I one thing of value, Clisver, that I really believe is how important it is for people who are struggling with mental health issues to see other people who have dealt with mental health issues and who have found a way to thrive and to live their life and still contribute and to feel like they're part of society and doing what they have to offer, giving what they have to offer. I think you are that hope for people, and I do think what you're doing is important because I actually spoke with one person that she struggled with a lot of mental health issues, and one of the major issues for her has been the stigma, and she felt very kind of trapped by it. So I that kind of message you're doing, what you're relaying, I hope you know that it has value, and especially to those who have struggled. So I commend you on
I'm
that.
so glad it does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm really grateful that you participated here today, and wondering what would you like to leave people off with? Is there a message you want people to know and for a final statement?
I think that we all have beauty in us. I think that no matter where we come from, we all have beauty in us, and we just have to go within and bring it out. We all have a talent. We all have a voice. We all have something within us, and we all just have to show the world what we have. And I think that it just takes some time for us to see it.
Thank you so much, Clisver. This was a really wonderful conversation, and I appreciate you taking the time to be here today. I wish you the best in your future. Perhaps if you ever want to join in with another conversation down the road, be happy to have you. And I hope this project is something that impacts people and touches people's lives in the way that is meaningful to you. I think it's
Thank you so
great.
much.
Yeah, it's great to have someone who's been down that path and has something to say about their experience, and that you can contribute that. So I appreciate your time, and thank you very much for sharing your story, which I think is very important for people to hear.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm seriously such an honor to be here with you.
Oh, thank you. I'm really appreciate your taking your time to do this, and perhaps we'll talk again, Clisver.
Of course.
Okay, all the best to you, and we will be here next week. And if you stay on the line, I'll be with you in a minute, Clisver. And in the meantime, I want to thank everyone tuning in to listen to this interesting show with Clisver Alvarez, mindset expert, freelance writer, founder of Blue Greis Lifestyle, who navigated bipolar disorder and is now on the other end of trying to help others who struggled with their mental health issues. Wishing you all the best. Please practice kindness, and let's all have these conversations about mental health issues. With that, one person at a time, we can start making a change. So thank you, and until next time.